us. Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga has revealed that close to 160,000 pupils in 7 provinces have not returned to class this year. About 50,000 of them are in primary school, while over 108,000 are supposed to be in high school. To help us talk about whether the education system is itself contributing to the high number of pupils who are either dropping out or unable to return for various reasons, we're joined tonight by education expert Xolani Majola. We're hoping to also link up to the Education Department spokesperson Mhlanga. I'm told we're just having a bit of an issue connecting to him. But if I can begin with you, Xolani, a very good evening to you. Welcome to the program. So 160,000 or so children have not gone back to class. We're now in March, but given the fact that this has been an ongoing trend in South Africa, just how surprised are you?
Well, I am surprised a bit. But as you say, based on the previous history of learner attendance at school, one is not particularly shocked that this kind of detail actually is coming through. It was only a matter of time. Obviously, the pandemic has had quite a huge impact on all of this. So yeah, a little bit surprised. Because I would have thought that in 2022, things would have improved in terms of learner attendance.
But it speaks, doesn't it, this figure, to the fear that was raised by Minister Angie Motshekga right at the beginning of the pandemic, when schooling had to be interrupted and there had to be the introduction of the rotational learning, where she said the problem is once the education system loses a child who does not return because maybe they're poor and have nothing to eat and therefore find themselves having to work to support the home, for instance, it is near impossible for them to come back.
No, it's true. But also, on the other hand, what it means is that I think it's high time that government itself needs to take more responsibility, because they already know the caliber of a learner that they are dealing with, who's poor, who's occasionally hungry, who comes from a...
Right, Xolani, I think we're having a bit of an issue with our connection to you as well. Xolani Majola, an education expert, speaking to us today as we look at this latest data, or at least reporting around a presentation given recently by the Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga, where it was said that close to 160,000 pupils have not gone back to school since the beginning of this year. We're now in the first week of March, and you wonder if there'll be an improvement in those numbers. Xolani, I'm told we have you back now. Let's talk about just the point you were making. I mean, one of the reasons why kids drop out of school is because they're poor and, for example, have to go without meals for days. And that is why the Basic Education Department has often found itself in trouble with some of the NGOs who've even had to go to court to force it to feed children.
Yeah. Earlier on, I was trying to talk about the business of government. It is government responsibility to make sure that those who cannot afford get a chance to actually receive some of the basic things that are due to them. And slightly, I want to challenge government here in terms of their approach, in terms of their planning, in terms of their strategies, in terms of their resources. What is it that they make available? How do they make it available? COVID-19 obviously was always going to be problematic for government.
Okay, let's bring in Basic Education Department spokesperson Mhlanga, who I believe is on the line. Elijah, thank you for your time and being on News at Prime tonight. Let's begin with the basics. This new data about the number of children who've not gone back to class for 2022, what have you found to be the main reasons why they're not returning?
Well, we are not there yet. This was just the first report based on the data that we collected from the school management system, checking the number of learners already registered on our database who did not come back to school. In the meeting that the minister held over the weekend with different stakeholders, she indicated to them that in another 2 weeks there would be another meeting, but she also asked them to go help us find out the reasons for the situation that we have seen that shows that learners did not come back to school. So we are only looking at the numbers of learners who did not come back to school. We have not interrogated the reason for that as yet, but we have some thoughts on what could have taken place. We suspect that one, some of them could have gone to enroll at private schools. Others at FET phase might have gone to TVET colleges, and others might have moved to other provinces, which means by the end of this term, we will know exactly what is taking place. As you know, schools are going to close later in March.
So it may very well be that they're not lost to the education system, they've just gone elsewhere.
Yeah, that may well be the reason. That's why the minister said that we needed to treat these statistics with caution because they are preliminary and we must not rush to make conclusions because these learners might not have dropped out. Others might have been taken to home education by their parents as an option that is available to parents and provided for in the education policy. So we are just saying these are the learners that we have not seen back in school as yet, but we expect them to come back, or at least that we should be able to account for all of them after our stakeholders also committed to going back to find out why they have not come back.
The challenge, of course, is for those who've not come back or who've not sought private education or gone to an FET is that, as the minister has said year on year, once they leave, and I was making this point earlier with Xolani, once they leave, it's near impossible to get them back. I'm looking at us now, we're in March, and soon there'll be April, then June assessments, and then half the year's gone.
Well, that's correct. That's why even in that meeting, the minister said there were things that we're going to do as a department. And one of the things that we're doing is to appeal to parents to return those kids to school. Tomorrow, we are in Westbury, in Gauteng, where we know that there's a high level of absenteeism. And we are here tomorrow to ask the community to release their children back to school. And we are bringing a whole range of services, from vaccination to making sure that learners are screened for auditory ailments they might have. And we are also bringing them matric support programs, and we are bringing them Funda Lushaka bursary schemes, and we are bringing motivational speakers as well to try to talk to them. We'll bring some entertainment as well. In the middle of that, we'll also talk to the young people at Westbury High to say, please go tell your friends who have not come back to school that they must come back to school. We need them because we plan on the basis of them coming back to school. So if they don't come back, it becomes wasteful expenditure because there's funding for each and every learner in the system.
Let's talk about these 261 schools that at the beginning of the year were unable to return full time. Has that number moved at all? Have you been able to bring it down significantly?
The number is going down because some of them could not open because of infrastructure challenges resulting from the weather that damaged schools. So the repairs are ongoing, but we also welcome the announcement by the Minister of Finance last week when he said 407 million rand would be allocated to KZN to fix those storm-damaged schools there so that they become fully operational as well. But also in terms of the allocation to infrastructure, money has now become available for us to be able to bring mobile classrooms where we need this on an urgent basis, but also repair schools where this needs to be done so that we're able to accommodate all our learners. And
that's the challenge, isn't it? One of the main challenges, especially when you look at the lower tier schools where it's one thing for children to drop out of school because of circumstances in the home, but it's also a serious problem when the schools they have to attend aren't up to scratch as far as the norms and standards. There are issues with some schools that we're still hearing where kids say we're supposed to get a daily meal, but it's not really happening. So there's a broader list of issues that would need to be addressed holistically in order for us to get this right finally.
Well, that's an ongoing project that we are undertaking as a department to make sure that we fix our schools. But the absenteeism is also affecting brand new schools that have been recently built with state-of-the-art facilities. So that cannot be an issue there. It's a different one. It's a social matter which requires parents. Where the challenge is infrastructure, we tackle that and resolve it. Where the matter is beyond our control, we appeal to communities. to talk to us. We take responsibility for the things that we can control, and we ask for partnerships with communities in matters that are beyond the school gates.
Over 9,000 was the number that was given as far as teaching posts that needed to be filled. Again, that number I know is a moving target. It may be higher, it may be lower. What is the latest update that you have on that score?
Well, we are appointing. The good thing is that this is taking place after the budget for the country was announced by the minister, so we know what the allocation is going to be. The minister even had a meeting today with MEC, and all these matters were discussed in terms of the way forward and how we need to reboot the system, saying that schooling is back to full-time attendance from the 7th of February. So that is assisting us to plan forward towards the new financial year and towards finalizing outstanding issues in this school calendar year. So we are working, taking into account all the commitments that have been made to support the sector in general, but also sister departments that are assisting us to get done the stuff that we need for the basic education sector to work.
We're running out of time, that's why I'm rushing you here. So it's still safe to say that around 9,000 teaching posts may still need to be filled for this year.
Every day someone is appointed somewhere. Every day an advert is out somewhere. Every day someone is given a contract somewhere to fill a post that exists. So that's what we are doing. Even today there was a report on the placement of our newly qualified graduates who were funded through the Fundza Lushaka Bursary scheme, and we saw the numbers there. If all those people have been placed, then that number would have been cut by more than half already by today, from the time when that report was released.
Elijah Mhlanga, spokesperson for the Basic Education Department, is joining us tonight. We also spoke earlier with education expert Xolani Majola on the school issue of children who've simply not come back, well, not simply not come back, who for a number of reasons have not been able to return to school, be it poverty, be it that they've moved into private education, or even